Hi, welcome to Real Talk. Today we're going to chat a little bit about inspections. Inspections are a really important part in the real estate process. Whether you're buying or selling, understanding the inspection process can help you to prepare. If you're writing offers, often buyers have a lot of questions about the condition of the home, and it can be helpful to know what types of information come in the inspection process. And for sellers, it can help you to prepare your house. So here we go. Okay, so in the greater Sacramento region, there are 5 recommended inspections: a home inspection, a structural pest inspection, a roof inspection, a sewage scope, and an HVAC inspection. So today I'm going to share a little bit about each one with approximate costs. If you want referrals for these types of inspections, please feel free to reach out. First up, home inspection. So when we're talking about a home inspection, we're talking about a general cursory look at all of the systems, the structure, the cosmetic stuff. Even though it doesn't really always fit in the report, they will call out like hole in the wall. There's no real structural issue to that, but they do point it out. Where these are really important is when you are trying to learn about the home that you're buying. So the main report has the age of your appliances, the nitty gritty, like everything kind of that they're seeing. They touch on all of the systems in the home. The walkthrough is touching on things that fall outside the scope of what they would expect for a similar home of that age. So health and safety issues, failing systems. When we get into negotiations during the inspection period, it's usually because of those items that were called out in the summary page of the home inspection. Doing the walkthrough also is really great for home buyers, especially first-time home buyers who've maybe never cared for a home, because they're going to take you through the whole home and show you where everything is. Where's your electrical box? Where's your water shut off? When you're looking in the report and wondering, what do I mean by that? This is what I mean, right? So sometimes little things come up, and it also is an opportunity for you as a buyer to ask questions, which is great because they're your resource for that hour and a half. So home inspection every time. The next one is structural pest. So we abbreviate that to pest inspection. And one of the most common misconceptions is that an inspector is going to come out and look for rats and spiders and, all those things. No. When we're talking about structural pests, we're talking about wood destroying organisms. So termites and wood boring beetles, carpenter bees, like things that will eat and destroy wood is the pests that they're looking for. But they're really looking for dry rot, right? Where around the house is there rotted wood that's affecting the structural integrity of the home? That would be considered section 1, okay? Pests and damage. And then section 2 is anything that requires preventative maintenance. So a great example of that would be there's a leak in your plumbing and it hasn't caused damage yet, but if you continue to use the faucet and it continues to leak, it's going to cause damage. So that's considered section 2 because there isn't any existing dry rot or damage, but there will be if you don't correct it. So structural pests, section 1, section 2, those range in price from about $125 to about $200, depending on the company. And they take about 45 minutes to an hour. If you have a home with a crawl space with a lot of wood trim, it could take longer. I live in Gold River, the Powell homes that have all wood siding, sometimes those are more substantial. But anyway, that's structural pest. Okay, so the third one is roof. So roof inspections are probably one of the trickiest areas to navigate. And I say that because roofing companies don't always want to come out and do them, right? Reputable roofing companies, because working with a real estate transaction doesn't always mean that you're going to get paid. So it's a lot of time to come out, write a report, give the feedback, and not know if there's any job that's going to come of it. And typically roofers, like other general contractors, they want to come out and meet and bid on as many jobs knowing that they're going to win a certain percentage of them. In real estate, it's much trickier. So there are a couple companies in our area, Roof Doctors and Roof Checks are 2 of the bigger ones that I'm familiar with that do paid roof inspections. It's about $75. Roof Doctors is actually free. Roof Checks is $75. I used Roof Doctors for a long time and now I use Roof Checks. Here I said I wasn't going to give referrals and listen to me, but I think it's important to explain because it explains the context. So these companies come out and they give reports. reports that we're familiar with as real estate agents. So they come out and they look for the integrity of the roof. They'll ask if there's any leaks, but this is all an exterior inspection unless you know there's a leak and you're asking them to come out and weigh in on what's this leak, where it's coming from. So they'll look at what they can see from the outside of the roof, and what we look for is an estimated age of the roof and the cost of maintenance. Okay, sometimes we get a more damning roof report that says that the roof is at the end of its life and it can't really be repaired. That's really what we're looking for, to make sure that the roof is in good condition and serviceable. But 90% of the time, we kind of know what's coming, and it's usually a range of like, hey, these are the repairs that we recommend. This is about how long you have left on your roof, and we just take in the information and keep going. Sewage scope. Okay, this one I was just talking with my client about today. What is a sewage scope? So we pay a plumber to come out and scope your sewage line. If you've ever had a backup or any major issues, you're really familiar with this process, but most homeowners just aren't. It's not something that comes up on a regular basis. So if you live in an older home or in a community with a lot of established trees, it's like a must, okay? They come, they scope the line, and they're looking for blockages, breaks in the line. Probably the most common finding that we have is tree root intrusion, or what's the word for that? Intrusion? Tree roots, I don't know, tree roots that are blocking the line, and essentially they want to flush it, they want to clean it. Sometimes you have to replace a section of the line. It just depends how bad it is and where it is in the line. There's a certain point where the line becomes a responsibility of the city, right? It crosses over, but so we're primarily looking at the line going into the house and going to that portion in the street. The last one is HVAC. So HVAC, I would say, next to roof and pest work, structural pest work, is probably the most negotiated item when we're talking about systems in the home. So an HVAC inspection, they kind of vary depending on who you're working with. Some people will give you very elaborate reports that kind of break down the entire system in detail that most homeowners aren't really going to understand. I typically tend to prefer the inspection reports where they're talking about, here's the age of your unit, yes, it's in good working order, or no, we need these repairs. These are the recommended repairs. And if you make those repairs, you should be good. That's kind of what we're looking for in an HVAC inspection. Every once in a while, we know we've got a really old unit that's usually visible, or, we know as of the home inspection, like, okay, we've got an older unit. What kind of condition is it in? And so when I say that it's negotiated, because the HVAC is such a big ticket item, it's usually on the top of buyers' minds. Like, oh my gosh, is this thing going to go out? No one can tell you exactly when it's going to go out. So it is something that we have a lot of conversations about. So there's different ways to negotiate that. But typically, let's say from the seller side, if you have an older unit, I highly recommend that you have it serviced and maintenance prior to going to market. The reason being is that you can provide that piece of paper that says, yes, this is the age of our unit, but it's in good working order. We had a company come out and look at it. You're good to go, because that's really what we're looking for in a real estate transaction. If you have an older unit and you've got that bill of health, essentially what you're doing is reinforcing the home warranties that are embedded in the purchase agreement. They can be excluded, so that's a whole nother, that's another real talk. We'll do home warranties. But there is a level of insurance for the larger system. So if you have a clean bill of health, your HVAC was working at the time of purchase, and you have a home warranty, that can help reinforce your insurance coverage if and when something were to fail during the length of that policy. So those are the 5. We live in California. Get your inspections. There's really no reason not to. I know some areas of California, we waive inspections, but what people don't understand is typically that's because inspections are being provided at the time of offer. So if you have inspections up front and you feel like you've got a good sense of the house, sometimes we talk about that, waiving inspections. But in general, as a buyer, it's a powerful tool to understanding your home and knowing what you're buying. So thanks for joining.